screen at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. In Southern California, police are searching for a suspect in Santa Monica after injuring a police officer.
Police swarmed the area around the popular and busy 3rd Street Promenade Mall in Santa Monica on Wednesday afternoon, racing in with long guns out and ordering people to shelter in place. A shooting between a suspect and officer left the officer injured, and the man who allegedly hurt the officer on the run. Police warning the man who has not been arrested is armed and dangerous. Alex Stone, ABC News.
President Trump announcing Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth will hold a news conference tomorrow at the Pentagon. It follows pushback over an early intelligence assessment on the U.S. military strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. at a global fundraising event tonight, announcing the U.S. will no longer contribute donating to the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. He accused the organization of neglecting vaccine safety. This is ABC News. Israeli forces facing more criticism after more civilian deaths and chaos at aid distribution sites in Gaza. ABC's Marcus Moore says the UN estimates hundreds have died.
There have been a number of deaths reported at the food distribution sites that have been set up, including on just yesterday, as many as 49 people were killed, according to officials there, as they had lined up for humanitarian aid.
In New Jersey, a lifeguard at Asbury Park Beach is in stable condition after being impaled by a beach umbrella. Joe Bongiovanni with Asbury Park Beach Operations says the woman was setting up an umbrella when the wind took it.
In a new federal...
And as it was going out, she reached up to grab it again. And when she grabbed it, it pulled her off the bench with the umbrella. And when they landed on the ground, the thing came down and it went through the adipose tissue underneath her tricep there and went through her arm there.
Officials say she's in good spirits and will be okay. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code EARN to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code EARN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code EARN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Grothman.
Hey, folks, welcome back. It's the Common Sense Conservatives every Wednesday night from 7 to 9 p.m., coming to you live from our studio in Nashua, New Hampshire, where WSMN's headquarters is located, as well as our private studios located, this big multi-billion-dollar enterprise that we have in East Tennessee with our first-class retired Todd McKinley.
Hello,
McFly, with Todd McKinley there, and we've got John Grosvenor in the studio. John and Todd and myself have been at this for a while now. It seems it just keeps on rolling along. Not usually making those kind of mistakes. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to you tonight on the aftermath of the 12-day war, the use of overwhelming military force to push combatants to the peace table. And for the moment, a ceasefire is holding between Iran and Israel, the United States not in the conflict. Boy, did they get egg on their face. I got to tell you, Mitch McConnell's standing in the Senate complaining about the War Powers Act and about how Trump has led us in the war. And 3 minutes later, Trump announces a ceasefire. Right? I love it. I love it. Poor AOC had to come out and stand on the steps of the Capitol building and say, He used the word war in one of his tweets, so we're going to impeach him now. Oh, it was just embarrassing for these leftists and for Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Alex Jones and all of them now scrambling to get back in Trump's good graces after they dumped on him. All right, we got a guest coming in tonight. We're going to talk about firearms and the Second Amendment, Tennessee Firearms Association. We'll get to our guest in just a few moments there, but let me say hello to John Grosvenor in the studio. John, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, Chris. Just trying to beat the heat these days. You know, we were up to over 100 degrees yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I got out of the truck, my big truck, and got into my pickup truck and looked at the temperature gauge and go, that can't be right. It was reading 105. I go, it'll drop down to 95, 97 here soon. It didn't. No. I was surprised.
105. That's not bad. Ours was 104. It was close.
yeah. No, it was. I guess it was pretty much in the region yesterday, but it was pretty warm today too. I'll tell you what. Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying the Florida weather up here in New England.
Florida weather. That's Saudi Arabia weather, man. Right. That's Florida weather.
Oh my goodness.
Good Lord. No, it was. We had that same thing, and the heat is broken now. The temperatures dropped down from the high 90s to 85 because a rainstorm just came out of nowhere here and just poured all over us about an hour ago. So it's got a little bit cooler here. But Todd, are you also part of the heat dome or thunderdome as we're living it?
Absolutely. Yeah. On my deck, it was 110 degrees on my deck. And of course, not obviously the temperature outside, but it was like 108 on my carport, and it's like, Jesus, I'm not going to be out there long. I would go out, check the mail, and I'm back in.
Well, I actually, with my hip messed up, I went out to film a satirical video for my program about a political party in South Africa that promised to build a school 7 years ago, has yet done it. Now they promise to build houses for 10 people who are dead. They died in a bus accident, presumably for their survivors. So I went out to a local building site, walked there. It was 104 degrees in my shorts. I walked at a snail's pace so as not to break into a sweat, but it was brutal. It was brutal. So, we get this occasionally, but they act like it's never happened before. It's not even a record high.
I like this guy, Todd. I really like this guy. He walked at a snail's pace so he didn't break into a sweat. Dude, I stand out there looking at my car breaking into a sweat.
So wait. So John, are you telling us you're inside in the air con? You were just thinking about going outside and you started sweating.
Yeah, it was pretty close, I tell you what.
John was having meat sweat.
I'll tell you what.
He was having.
I'll tell you what.
I'll tell you what. Well, that sounds like a 70s thing now, doesn't it? I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it does. No, I think it's not Larry the Cable Guy. It's one of those guys. It's Bill Engvall's. I'll tell you what. That's a whole phrase in part of the country.
I think Larry the Cable Guy was, I don't care who you are. That's funny right there.
Yeah, no, those guys were all pretty funny, but they're getting up there, so that Bill Engvall retired and then he got bored and came out of retirement. He's doing a few shows a year now.
Was he carrying a sign?
Yeah, well, I don't know. He talked a lot about signs, but anyway. So, Todd, can you tell us a little bit about our guest tonight who's coming in to talk about Second Amendment and firearms?
Absolutely. He's going to talk about that and political activism and, of course, Tennessee politics. And
he's not going to be waving any firearms on air, is he?
He might. I don't know. That'd be
all right. No, I'm going to ask him not. No, it would be all right because YouTube gave me a 24-hour timeout.
Oh,
I didn't even wave a firearm on air, and they falsely claimed their artificial intelligence that I was waving a firearm on air, and I couldn't broadcast for 24 hours.
It was a finger gun, right? That's what it was.
It was these guns.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here we go.
How do we talk about firearms and not have them in possession right there so everybody can see them? I mean, come on, man, it's firearms.
But if
I'm just asking because we're simulcasting to YouTube. Yeah, that's all.
If John wants to bring in our guest, John Harris, an attorney out of Nashua, Tennessee. He's very active with the Tennessee Firearms Association, also political activism within the state. Love what he's talking about on social media. And I wanted to bring him on the show and talk about not only the Second Amendment, of course, I'm going to do air quotes here for the people on the air, the constitutional care that we have in the state, which really doesn't exist, and other things. But John, welcome to the show. Love to have you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it tonight.
Absolutely. And before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of got started with the Firearms Association or started the Firearms Association?
I'm a licensed practicing attorney in Tennessee. This is my 39th year to practice law, all of it based out of Nashville. I was one of 12 individuals in 1995 that got together and formed the Tennessee Firearms Association. And we formed it because in May of 1994, Tennessee adopted what's generally referred to as a shall issue permitting system. Prior to that point in time, Tennessee really didn't have on its books a permitting system where citizens could be able to gain the capacity to carry statewide. What we did have was the ability of citizens in the discretion of their local law enforcement to get commissions, but those were only good in the county. So Tennessee adopted a permit system in '94. It was pitifully written. It did not deal with the gun-free zones that existing law had created. And so the purpose of TFA being formed in '95 was to start working on the practical side of the problem of where can you go even if you have a permit.
Right, that makes sense. And then today we have a weird permitting system that came into being the last few years. Can you expound upon that and talk about how that's not true constitutional carry, even though our state legislators love to say that it is?
Yeah, they love to lie to us. Is what they love.
Yes,
to
they
do.
do.
But here's the problem. The concept of constitutional carry means that the activity just simply isn't a crime. There's only a few states that actually have true constitutional carry. And oddly enough, Vermont is the first state that ever had it. When we formed TFA in '95, we didn't talk about constitutional carry. We talked about Vermont carry.
Okay.
And that was because they had in the original Vermont Constitution a provision that protected the right of the citizens to carry firearms for lawful purposes. Now, the concept of constitutional carry, like I said, means that it's simply not a crime. Tennessee is about as far away from that standard as you could possibly get. And that's because in Tennessee, the way the law is currently structured and has been structured for quite a few years, Tennessee by statute defines any carrying of a firearm or a club with the intent to go armed to be a criminal offense.
Huh.
It doesn't matter if it's for offensive or defensive purposes. It doesn't matter if it's on your own property, if it's in your own home. It doesn't matter where you are or when it happens. If you're carrying a firearm in Tennessee with the intent to be armed, you're committing a crime. And the Tennessee law has in its regulatory scheme a bunch of defenses or exceptions. They'll use both terms. They mean slightly different things when you look at criminal procedure. But either way it goes, the burden is on the citizen to prove to a jury that they fit within one of the exceptions. And the exceptions would be things like you have a permit and you meet all the elements of a permit at the time you were engaged in the activity. You were on your own property. You were in your home. You were at your place of business. You had a hunting permit. You were out lawfully engaged in hunting activities. You were at a sports shooting range. All of these things are affirmative defenses. But the problem, part of the problem is, and the real dastardly part of the lie from the General Assembly, is that because they're affirmative defenses, law enforcement officers and district attorneys have no affirmative duty to evaluate whether you meet one of those defenses on the facts or the strength of it. So an officer could completely ignore the fact that you were on your own property or that you had a permit, and they could stop you, detain you, question you, charge you with an offense, or even arrest you. And then it's up to someone down the road to prove that you have that defense available.
That's sad. I can tell you on my own property, I'm not going to be disarmed by anyone, to include law enforcement. I'm just not going to. They're going to have to shoot me, or I'm going to get them. I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to be honest with it. Any law enforcement officer, I'm just not going to do it. So, but I want to turn it over to the Colonel for some questions there, if you don't mind, Colonel.
John, it almost sounds like the law is written intentionally to criminalize lawful behavior guaranteed under the Constitution from predation by the state, the way the Tennessee's law is written. I mean, you're supposed to navigate those circumstances. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, well, what else would I be but honest? But I seriously got to be honest. I grew up in Ohio with firearms from the age of 10. Of course, they weren't just handed to me. You know, I had to learn how to be safe with them. We didn't have any license. We didn't have any permits. We went all over the place and shot those things. And it's the world we live in now seems quite crazy to me. Is Tennessee's law drafted intentionally, maliciously, or just an oversight? Because to me, it sounds like almost any action you take, you could get charged with a crime, and it's up to you to defend yourself. It's almost like you're guilty before you're innocent.
Oh, no. This is not a mere oversight. This is intentional constitutional violations by the state of Tennessee. No doubt about it. We have repeatedly talked with legislators over the last 30 years, and particularly over the last 16 years with the GOP supermajority and 2 Republican governors, and explained to them why constitutional carry is completely incompatible with the system that they've got in Tennessee. And they don't care. They will tell you things like, well, Nashville says, and talking about law enforcement, Memphis says, Chattanooga says, all these major metropolitan areas, that they need the ability to stop people if they see them carrying guns in public because it increases their arrest for other matters. It's sort of like the same silliness of they're going to pull you over for a tail light or a headlight that's out, not because of safety, but because it gives them a chance to run your driver's license to see if there's pending warrants.
Right.
And so that's a lot of what's behind this. It is officers, law enforcement, not the guys on the street, and don't get me wrong there, but it's the guys in the leadership levels are saying and are taking the position that we need the ability to stop people, to vet them, to shake them down. And if they're behaving themselves, we'll probably let them go. But our success rate at catching people who have outstanding warrants, who have arrest records or arrest subpoenas from other states, our ability to catch the bad guys is substantially increased when we can stop anybody we see carrying a gun and shake them down, stop them, detain them, question them about who they are and what they're doing, because it gives them the chance to run those background checks.
Well, John, I'm not an attorney and I don't play one on television, but I've watched a lot of Law and Order. No, just kidding. But seriously, it seems to me that concept runs completely anathema to our system of jurisprudence because there's no probable cause here. They're fictitiously creating a probable cause to get arrested in other areas. I mean, the fact that someone has a firearm doesn't mean that they're illegal. I mean, that's just crazy. I appreciate where law enforcement wants to go after criminals, but I mean, we've got the country up in arms right now because we've got ICE agents sitting outside of meatpacking plants where 75% of the employees are criminal alien invaders, and people are losing their minds over that. How can that be right? Well, how could it be right to stop a citizen of Tennessee for having a firearm lawfully just so you can see if they've got other criminal charges or something like that? Do your job and find them another way. It seems to me like an end around the Constitution. Am I missing something here?
No, you're not. You're not missing it at all. I mean, a true constitutional carry environment would be one where you can carry pretty much whatever you want, whenever you want, almost wherever you want. I mean, nobody's really going to take the argument that someone who's sitting in jail ought to be in possession of a firearm. But putting that extreme example aside, the crime ought to be when you are in possession that you commit some other crime, an assault, a murder, a robbery, and the weapon is not the crime. The weapon is just a facilitator to the separate crime. But the concept that the Tennessee legislature, and when I say legislature, let me be specific. We're talking about Speaker Cameron Sexton, Lieutenant Governor Randy McDowell.
Republicans.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because with supermajorities, they could have changed this in 2010, and they chose not to do it. We're talking about Senator Jack Johnson, the Republican caucus leader, House member William Lambert, the leader of the Republican Party in the House side, and then some of their committee chairs that have been appointed. These are the people that are the gatekeepers, because if you look back over the last 16 years in particular, we filed the bills to fix this problem over and over and over again. That group of leaders, the leadership, team that's on Mount Olympus, so to speak, they will not even let these bills come to the floor for a debate or a vote, because I can say with a high degree of certainty, if the sunshine of what transpires on the floor in the House and the Senate were to light on these issues, we would not have the system we have now. We would have true constitutional carry.
So how does this come about? I mean, with supermajorities, Republican-led, ostensibly conservative. Obviously, we know a lot of the Republicans aren't conservative. They're actually just Republicans in name only, just ambulance-chasing shyster lawyers. Sorry, no offense to lawyers, or used car salesmen that are really just in it for self-aggrandizement, self-enrichment, or craving political power. How is this occurring in Tennessee with supermajorities? Is it cowardice? Is it lobbying? Is it laziness? Or is it just tone deafness?
Oh, I think it's deceit and lying.
Oh, okay. Well, I hadn't gone there, but okay, go ahead, John. Tell us about that.
But it's a great question. Why is it that these people that take an oath to the Constitution, that have clearly been informed by their constituents, or at least some constituents, as to what the problem with the current law is? I mean, we've got legislators like Monty Fritz, Chris Todd, and Clay Doggett that are clearly on our side, and some of their predecessors like Jerry Sexton, who get in these hearings and they sponsor the bills, they debate the bills in these committee hearings, and they've pointed out, I mean, we got tons of video where they've pointed out that we don't have constitutional carry and what the problems are. And then you have Bill Lee's administration and Bill Haslam's administration. And what I'm talking about typically is the Department of Safety and the TBI, those two organizations in particular. They come into these committee hearings and they absolutely oppose any change at all to this system. And then low information legislators bow to legislative leadership, Sexton, McNally, Jack Johnson, and William Lamberth, and they bow to TBI and the Department of Safety, and they don't stand up for our rights. Because we've got enough Republicans to change it. The number of Democrats that are up there doesn't make a difference. If they all voted against it, it would still pass overwhelmingly. But the governor doesn't want it. Bill Haslam didn't want it. And these legislative leaders don't want it. And so they're blocking it from even getting to the floor votes. And what's really sad about that, we've got video of Bill Haslam speaking in one of our chapter meetings when he was running for governor, saying he would absolutely support constitutional carry. And we've got a letter from Bill Lee. He refused to take our survey, but we got a letter from him before he ever became governor, but he was running for governor, saying that he would support the concept of constitutional carry. And neither one of them have. In fact, once they got power, they did just the opposite.
Well, John, I got to be honest, not being a lawyer, I'm not being facetious here. I'm a little confused because I am a layperson and I did support and defend this Constitution for 36 and a half years in uniform. And I read the Second Amendment to say a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So I've always been curious how states like New Jersey and Maryland get away with criminalizing firearm possession by law-abiding citizens, and why states even need a constitutional carry law. I mean, the Constitution guarantees it. How are these states, which fall under the Constitution, and there's a supremacy clause for the Constitution, how do states get away with requiring these onerous requirements that many states have? And, I'm sure you're familiar with some of the stuff New Jersey and Maryland do. It's atrocious.
Oh, yeah. And I can answer that. If you look at the constitutional construct that existed in the 1700s between the proposed federal government and the 13 original states in particular, they view things quite differently than we do. Like I said, Vermont, and in fact, most of the original 13 states had provisions in their state constitutions protecting the rights of the citizens with respect to arms. And it was also quite clear, not only at the time in the minds of the founding fathers, but in the minds of those people that were ratifying the Constitution at the state levels, that those provisions that we embrace as part of the Bill of Rights had nothing to do with state powers, nothing at all. Those were only restrictions on the authority of the federal government. And it wasn't until, and there's tons of case law that confirms that. Now, what the case law tends to say, particularly with respect to Tennessee, is that our constitutional provision at the state level, Article 1, Section 26, and the Second Amendment are similar but not identical, and that what they seek to protect, arms in both contexts, are basically the same categories of weapons. But it's abundantly clear that the Second Amendment did not apply to the states. That did not change until a Supreme Court decision in 2010 called McDonald versus City of Chicago. And even in McDonald, they didn't say that the Second Amendment directly applies to the states. What they said was, based upon this judge-made doctrine called the incorporation doctrine, that they read into the 14th Amendment, sort of the same way they read Roe versus Wade to just create a right when it didn't exist. This one runs in our favor, but what they said in McDonald was, because of the 14th Amendment and the equal protection and due process clauses in it, the Second Amendment now applies to the states, but that's only been for the last 15 years. And the effect of that is that the current Tennessee Constitutional Clause, Article 1, Section 26, which was adopted in 1870, has this provision on it that says the legislature can regulate the wearing of arms with a view towards preventing crime. They added that sort of as a Jim Crow post-Civil War provision to give the legislature the authority to regulate wearing of arms, but it was really to regulate which people could wear arms. And that provision survived, and it's what the General Assembly has relied upon. I mean, as recently as just a few years ago, we've heard legislators sit in these committees on a public stream and read the Tennessee Constitution. It says, well, right here it says we have the ability to regulate the wearing of arms, and that's all we're doing with these laws. So we're acting constitutionally, and they're clueless about the McDonald decision or the 14th Amendment.
Well, John, that's interesting. Just a moment here. Folks, you're listening to Common Sense Conservatives on WSMN out of Nashua, New Hampshire. Our guest tonight is Attorney John Harris, the founder of the Tennessee Firearms Association. We're going to talk a little bit more about that group here shortly. But I want to go back to the point that John just made a moment ago. And I want to make sure I'm not missing something here. So I've talked for a long time about, a lot of Americans are like, tech companies can't censor me. And like, well, no, they can. That's a private institution. It's the Constitution protects us against the federal government silencing you. But by that same logic, with the Second Amendment, what's to stop states from censoring people unless they have a constitution that protects freedom of speech, or from the state of Tennessee establishing the Episcopal Church as the Church of Tennessee, unless it's in your constitution? Because it sounds like it turns the supremacy clause on its head if the states don't have to abide by the Second Amendment. Did I misunderstand something there?
No, not really. When it comes to the First Amendment issues, the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, had used the incorporation doctrine in the 14th Amendment to apply it to the states years ago. They did the same thing with the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. They just drugged their feet, so to speak, on the Second Amendment.
I see.
But various provisions, because not all provisions of the Bill of Rights apply to individuals. The 10th Amendment, for example, really doesn't address individuals. But the court's slowly been using the 14th Amendment, which only came into existence in the 1860s, to apply selectively provisions from the Bill of Rights to restrict the scope of authority that states had prior to the 14th Amendment. And so they were just coming late to the game on the Second Amendment, but it's there now. I disagree entirely with the Supreme Court's incorporation doctrine, but like I said, as a general rule, it favors individual citizens, particularly when their state governments are tyrants.
I guess this is where the Constitution gets really murky in some respects, and what we learned in civics, we have to sit and think very hard about. I mean, because for instance, with the 14th Amendment, I have issues with the interpretation, meaning birthright citizenship, people who are illegal aliens who come to this country and gain the advantage. I disagree with that. And I don't see that written to the 14th Amendment. The clear intent of the 14th Amendment, from what I read from it as a layperson, is that it's intended to those who were formerly in bondage to grant them citizenship, and those born in the country. So that's, but the problem with that, though, I suppose, is that remember that, of course, that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were ratified by overwhelmingly Republican states at the time when the states in rebellion were suspended from voting. They couldn't vote on the amendments, so they didn't have a say in it. What would stop a state from reinstituting slavery if the 14th Amendment didn't apply to the states?
Oh, yeah. I think other than changes in political sentiment of the populace, they potentially could.
Well, I mean, obviously, I got you, but I mean, look at New York. New York has just elected a radical Islamic fascist who has got a track record that's appalling and wants to turn New York into a socialist paradise with state-owned grocery stores interfering in the marketplace. I mean, anything can happen. Look, that's not a dig on Islam. That's a dig on that guy. It's his worldview.
Absolutely.
It's not his faith. It's not his faith that's messed up. It's worldview. But my point is that, what protections are there? I'm not trying to get into an esoteric argument about Constitution, because we all agree here. We're all in favor of the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms. But I'm just kind of tease it out because I don't think a lot of people really think hard about this or have thought hard about, how the Constitution applies. Because during the lockdown, when the censorship took place on Facebook and all these other places, all these people were complaining, they can't do that to me. I have freedom of speech. I said, you have no freedom of speech. It's a private corporation. You've agreed to their terms and they can shut you down. Now, if they've done it illegitimately, you can sue them for breach of contract or fraud. But, you can't get them for freedom of speech. You don't have any freedom of speech on Twitter. It's up to them. And in fact, they have a responsibility to prevent dangerous speech. So anyway, it's like, shouting fire in a crowded theater. Rights aren't universal. There are certain restrictions on our rights. So anyway, but let me ask a question, John, as we move on here about the Tennessee Firearms Association. When did you found that? How long has it been around?
30 years. We formed it.
John, you don't look that old.
I'd been practicing law for about a decade when we formed TFA, but it was formed 30 years ago this year. The following year in 96, we formed a state level political action committee. So we've had it for 29 years. And then in 2023, just 2 years ago, we formed the Tennessee Firearms Foundation, which we use because it's a full charity. We use it for public interest litigation and some other activities that we can do within the context and restrictions of a charitable organization, but let our donors have the ability of charitable deductions for their contributions, which you can't get with the PAC or the C4.
Understandable. So does your organization have any relationship or ties to neighboring states that have similar organizations, or perhaps something like the Gun Owners of America? Any affiliation or any relationship, or do you coordinate with any of these groups, or you go at your own route?
Oh no, we coordinate. I've got close connections with, in particular, the state groups in North Carolina and Virginia. They're very active for, the issues that are in their jurisdictions, but they're equally active. And then I do a lot of work, both as an attorney and as the executive director of the Tennessee Firearms, with Gun Owners of America. So, for example, I was mentioning that we do public interest litigation. Since 2019, TFA has been involved in at least 45 lawsuits, either as a plaintiff or funding the litigation or filing amicus briefs. And I would say 90% of that we've done in partnership or in cooperation with Gun Owners of America. But we've also, when the opportunity presents, done cases with Second Amendment Foundation and with, haven't actually done a full case yet, but we have a lot of discussions with Firearms Policy Coalition. The only one of the national groups that we really shun is the NRA.
Yeah, the NRA is really falling on hard times. They really are not popular. It's a lot of people have issues with them. I think a lot of it had to do with Wayne LaPierre and his conduct, but still, they for a long time have really a lot of people who are true Second Amendment advocates kind of stray away from those guys. It's interesting.
Well, and I will say, I mean, when it comes to Tennessee laws, since 2007, there was a clear shift of orientation. The NRA's lobbying division that handles state lobbying and federal lobbying, which is called NRA, Institute for Legislative Action, NRA ILA. They've done more damage to efforts to try to fix Tennessee law since the last 18 years now than they have been a useful partner. We would have been better off in Tennessee if NRA had not even been here advocating, because the quality of the lobbying and their political allegiances to people like Cameron Sexton, Lee, Bill Haslam, Randy McNally,
major rhinos in the state. Major rhinos in the state.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about the litigation. So, would the Tennessee Firearms Association play a role potentially in a case? So let me frame this. During the Summer of Love, the Black Lives Matter destruction of billions of dollars of America, and most of the law enforcement sitting on the sidelines, unfortunately. When that occurred, that couple, I believe, was in Missouri, where they have a stand your ground law, a castle doctrine, and the couple are on their property.
St. Louis area.
St. Louis, they broke their gate, and it's not, it's a long distance into the house. They came and menaced them on their porch. They came out with a handgun and a rifle, I believe it was, and neither was pointed at the people, but they had trespassed and threatened the lives and safety of that family. There's a doctrine defending them, but a Soros-funded district attorney prosecuted them, and they're actually attorneys, if I'm not mistaken, the couple. And what a mess that was. Would this be a case if something like that happened in Nashville, or would you, or Chattanooga, that you guys might get involved in?
Potentially. TFA and our foundation, we're really very selective, and we try to get the most bang for the buck in the types of cases that we'll take on. We do very little unless we've found us a test plaintiff, where we get involved in individual prosecutions. We get the calls all the time. So-and-so's been arrested. It's a self-defense case. It's a brandishing case. We get tons of calls, or restoration of rights, and we just can't take them all. So we tend to, at this point, and for the last 6 years or so, we very narrowly limited our litigation and our public interest litigation to issues that have broad application. So we got involved, for example, in Bruin, Rahimi, Heller. You go down the list of Supreme Cargill, a bunch of them, but they tend to be issues that have either broad state application. Like we presently have a lawsuit pending against Bill Lee and Attorney General Scametti, filed over in Gibson County, Tennessee, where we're seeking a declaratory ruling that Tennessee's intent to go arms statute and its prohibition on being able to carry in public parks both violate the state and federal constitutions as interpreted by Bruin. And both Lee and Scametti are making the argument that those restrictions, ones we talked about earlier in the interview, are fully constitutional and should be retained as part of state law.
They sound like dangerous political figures to be in office if they're making that argument. So what would you argue is perhaps we already talked about earlier about constitutional carry and the concept of how the law is written in Tennessee, but what would you say the gravest threats to the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms in Tennessee, and maybe more generally in the states right now? Anything come to mind? I'm sure.
Well, there's a lot of litigation going on nationally. I mean, I'm presently involved with GOA and stuff in Florida, North Dakota, Texas, Tennessee, in a multitude of lawsuits where our activities are focused on the ATF and rolling back as much of the damage that occurred during the Biden administration as possible. But in terms of threats individually to the average citizen in Tennessee, it's not necessarily coming from the ATF. And they're a pain, no doubt. And they're an entity that ought to be the name of a convenience store as opposed to a federal agency. But they exist. But for most Tennesseans, they're not the big threat in terms of your day-to-day activities and your rights. That big threat is coming from our governor, our General Assembly, TBI and the Department of Safety, and to some extent local law enforcement. But that's, again, at major blue cities as opposed to most of the state. That's where the big threats lie, because they've got this spectrum of laws that if they come after you, you've got to hire attorneys, defend yourself, call your, if you have one of the gun owner protection plans, invoke it. But these people are perfectly willing and able to try to put you in jail, put you in prison, or take away your rights entirely just by flexing muscle under state law.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that. What they did to Trump, trumped up charges and fictitious laws created for 1 year and only one person charged. No, it's pretty sad. You mentioned here these insurance policies. I think maybe not a lot of people are not familiar, but as a firearm owner, you can, through some of these organizations, get insurance to help protect you should you be charged with something in a lawful use of a firearm or lawful possession of it. Can you mention some of that? You don't have to mention companies, whatever, but I mean, that's really designed to protect the firearm owner, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of these plans on an annual basis will be priced anywhere from $150 to say about $500. There's a wide, it's not like car insurance because there's a wide spectrum of coverage. Some of them only pay your legal defense cost, but they have no cap on that. So if it's a civil case or criminal case, they'll pay the defense attorneys. They'll cover things like red flag laws. They'll cover things about having a weapon in your baggage at the airport. They'll cover self-defense events. They'll cover if you're, one of them will cover if you're out hunting and you discharge a weapon and shoot something, a car, a livestock that's not lawful for you to shoot, just because you're not a good shot. Others of them actually have insurance components with up to about $2 million worth of coverage, so that if you are involved in an incident, maybe injure a bystander or shoot their Tesla, they'll not only defend you, but they'll
You had to throw it in. I love it.
Stop. Look, so John, what you're saying is I'm not allowed to shoot at cars. I didn't know that.
Wait a minute.
Don't shoot at cows.
Did you see that bullet come from my gun? Did you see it come from my gun?
I thought I could sit on overpasses and shoot at passing cars. I guess that's apparently illegal.
Not Teslas. That's apparently.
Yeah. The problem with the Teslas is they burn worse than other cars.
Oh, they sure do. We've seen that. My goodness. Wow. Sorry, I didn't mean to mention.
It's a practical matter when there's a broad spectrum of what attorneys charge, but I can give you an example that in a self-defense case, it goes all the way to trial. If you have good issues and are going to make a full fight of it, I've seen those cases run legal fees anywhere from $150,000 to $500,000.
Wow.
And the guys that can pay that, what choice do they have if they want to stay out of jail and potentially long term? And then our crazy legislature gives the district attorneys, particularly these Soros attorneys like the one in Nashville, a club to even beat you with, because what they did a few years ago was they passed what's called crooks with guns. And so I had a case just a few years ago where a young man, not old enough at the time to legally possess a handgun, thought he would sort of be cool and got his grandfather's handgun and stuck it in his pocket. And he goes out to what's called a fight night, a bunch of high schoolers acting crazy in the field. And while he's there, a couple of other men, young men in their late teens, early 20s, get into a fight, start picking on him because they're asserting that he was beaten up or he was flirting with one of their girlfriends, and ended up getting the guy down on the ground, kicking the fire out of him. He pulls the gun and shoots one of them in the stomach. Ooh. And the district attorney chose to prosecute. It was a self-defense case. There were several witnesses who signed affidavits that said, absolutely, this guy was defending his life. And he didn't initiate it. They started it and they escalated it. He was just defending himself. But what they decided to do was to charge him under that crooks with gun statute, which basically says if you use a firearm in the commission of a crime and you're convicted of it, you get 10 years minimum in the penitentiary, no probation, no parole. Well, this guy would have been a first offender, but the crooks with guns would have put him away. And so he settled the case on a plea bargain, and then a few years later committed suicide because he just couldn't live with the consequences that this felony conviction had on him in terms of getting a job, getting further education, all that kind of stuff.
So they used the law because the underlying crime was he had carried a firearm illegally underage.
Yeah. And then
so they destroyed his life because of that. So I guess the response would have been he shouldn't have had a firearm. He should have let himself be beaten to death at that fight. Yeah,
that's exactly the position the DAs would take on something like that.
These people are sick. Look, it's wrong to carry the firearm, but that's not a just outcome.
Right. But like you said, he was over 18
at all.
Yeah, he was over 18, I believe you said, right? Over 18, but you can send him overseas to die, but he can't carry a firearm to protect himself. How sad is that?
It's just incredibly wrong.
Wait a second. He was
that's
over
the kind of law that these legislators would rather pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Tennessee, it's 21 years old, sadly.
You have to be 21 to carry a handgun?
Yeah, in the state of Tennessee, I believe that's right. Is that correct,
No.
John?
I mean, that's in flux because in 2023, there was a federal lawsuit filed against the Department of Safety called Beeler that was filed in East Tennessee. And it was a challenge to the permitting law that says you got to be 21 unless you're at least 18 and you're either in the military or honorably discharged.
Right.
And then if you were 18 or older, you could get a permit. And so these three gentlemen who were in the 18 to 20 bracket sued the state, alleged Second Amendment violation, 14th Amendment violation. This is post-Bruin, and also federal civil rights violations. And although our prior Attorney General, Slattery, defended it and was unwilling to compromise, when Scarametti came in, they almost immediately settled the case and stipulated that denying someone over the age of 18 from being able to get a handgun permit in Tennessee or to carry a firearm, a handgun, constituted a violation of the Second and 14th Amendments and constituted a federal civil rights violation. Now, the Attorney General's office has taken the position in other cases, however, that settlement only applies to the Department of Safety, so that if local law enforcement or the maybe
sheriffs,
the sheriffs or the law enforcement that's part of the park rangers, basically, they're not under the Department of Safety, that those people could still prosecute you for being over the age or under the age of 21. And then this year, the legislature did, 2 years after the settlement, change the handgun permit statute to say 18 and up is the threshold.
Right.
But curiously, what they didn't do is they didn't fix the statute about permitless carry, which still says you got to be 21 unless you're 18 and in the military.
Commie pinkos, man.
Right.
This government's supposed to defend our mutual interests, not oppress citizens. It's crazy. So, John, do you guys publicly disclose your membership numbers? Is that something that's available publicly, or just curious?
No.
Okay, a lot of organizations don't. That's why I asked the question.
I'm a member.
Okay, well,
I'll disclose it. I'm a member.
There's two. We know John's a member. So guys have at least two members. Speaking of John Grosvenor is still in the studio there. John, you got any questions before we run out of time in this hour?
I was sitting there listening to what you're saying, and I'm getting hot under the collar here. It's like that cartoon where the steam starts blowing out your ears, because this stuff drives me nuts. And to me, it's cut and dry. You read the Constitution, you got the supremacy clause that states that the Constitution, statutes, and treaties shall be the supreme law of the land, and all the laws shall revert to the states. So, therefore, all states are supposed to be required to abide by the U.S. Constitution, which your Second Amendment is in the U.S. Constitution. So, I don't know why we need a 14th Amendment in the first place for the states to recognize your right to keep and bear arms. It's ridiculous to me. So, what I hear is lawyers among the states and politicians among the states have muddied the waters and made things confusing and scary for people to own guns as a way to intimidate them and prevent them from wanting to do so. So what I'm wondering here is, because SCOTUS rulings apply to states as well as federal government, unless I'm mistaken. And we've heard that in the Heller case, where Heller was suing. You mentioned that earlier. Heller was suing because Washington, D.C. was depriving him his right to carry arms. So I'm wondering how Tennessee's getting away with any of this. And if they are enforcing this, are they not acting under the color of law?
Oh, absolutely, they are. And I'll tell you, I mean, it's been reported to us from friendly legislators that there's a specific legislator, House Republican in leadership, who frequently makes a comment to the effect of, it doesn't matter what the Constitution says, we can pass anything we want to pass. And the burden is then on somebody or some organization to file a lawsuit and get a court to rule that the statute that we enacted is unconstitutional. And until they do that, then it's on the books and we can enforce it. And so look at that mindset, that level of tyranny that this person openly expresses to their peers, but they won't say it live on a video to the constituents. And then sort of compare that with what Bill Lee and Scrimeti have said in that Hughes case where we've challenged the intent to go armed statute. And it's exactly right. That lawsuit's been pending now for over 2 years. They're still enforcing those laws, where you would think if they've taken an oath under the Constitution to protect and defend our rights, they should have come in and said, you're right, these are unconstitutional, particularly in light of Bruin, and we're going to immediately repeal them, and we'll agree not to enforce them until we can repeal them. But they've not done that. They've doubled down, and they want to enforce it.
So a law enforcement officer is enforcing a law that is unconstitutional, that is acting under the color of law. Therefore, can the police department itself be sued for violating that right, for acting under the color of law? Could they not be sued?
That's a tougher question, because in part of my practice, I do civil rights litigation. I got several cases now in front of the Sixth Circuit on First Amendment cases. And part of what you got to show is that the alleged violation, okay, the civil rights violation, was one or arose in a circumstance where the law was clearly established. Okay, this concept of you might have a claim that it might in fact be unconstitutional, but unless the law making it, okay, basically they're saying a court decision. Unless there was a court decision applicable to that jurisdiction that made it clear that the conduct or the law being enforced was unconstitutional, then even if it is unconstitutional and even if it is a civil rights violation, you can't get a remedy. They get basically a get out of jail free card.
Always happens, doesn't it?
And that's one of the most common defenses to civil rights violations when you bring them against governmental entities, is they immediately resort, regardless of whether or not the court's going to rule it is or isn't a constitutional violation, they immediately go to the law wasn't clearly established.
So as an organization, have you considered having meetings with law enforcement officers to talk to them about these things as a preemptive measure? I know you mentioned earlier it comes down to funding, about taking action and stuff like that, but I'm thinking a lot of people in Tennessee must love their rights and want to protect their rights. It would be willing to volunteer time to get involved and educate law enforcement officers where they stand on these things as far as legal matters and stuff goes. Is this an option?
It is an option. And I'll tell you that the best way to pursue that option is not necessarily through a state organization, although we're willing to be involved. It's through the fact that we've got the chief law enforcement officers in almost all counties. Davidson, for example, is an exception because we have a chief of police and our sheriff is just basically a jailer. But sheriffs in most counties are publicly elected. And the real pressure point is to have those constituents in an election cycle raise a fuss about it and get the sheriff to commit on the record in public speaking with video recordings or written statements as to whether or not they know or understand that these laws are unconstitutional. I'll give you an example. When we sued in that Hughes case that we have in Gibson County with Lee and Scrimeti, we also sued the sheriff and the district attorney. The sheriff, when this lawsuit was filed, was not represented generally this is the case. Sheriffs aren't represented by the state district attorney general's office. They're represented by local counsel, the county attorneys. The sheriff in that case immediately settled with us, basically saying, I'll agree to whatever the court tells me the law is, just let me out. Everybody else, Lee, Scrametti, the district attorney, have all been represented by the attorney general's office, and their objective is, no matter what, defend the state statutes, even if it's clearly apparent that they're unconstitutional.
That's sad.
It is sad. How do you feel about Sheriff Mack's constitutional sheriff's program?
I think it's a good program. I've met him. He is actually one of the speakers at our annual event about 8 years ago now. He's got an agenda, and his organization does. The sad thing is we have too many sheriffs in Tennessee that don't participate.
Yeah, that's it. People got to get involved on that one. Oh, Todd, you got something on your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a few minutes here left. In Tennessee, we have a gubernatorial election coming up. And I know you have some thoughts on that and some opinions. Some people are talking about, say, Senator Marsha Blackburn running for governor, who just recently ran for the United States Senate, reelected, knowing she's probably going to run for governor within the 2-year period. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts maybe on the gubernatorial race in the state?
Well, I will say this, Senator Blackburn used to be a state senator, and we had opportunities to try to deal with her as a state senator on Second Amendment issues. She was of no help. She didn't sit on the committees that we had to go through. But typically, if the bill got to the floor and the momentum was in the right direction, she would vote for whatever we were pushing, okay? She goes to Congress, first serves in the House, and then gets to the Senate. And when she did that, because in my law practice, I represent a lot of individuals and businesses that have federal firearms licenses. So I was having conversations with her and her office about legislation to help fix problems with the ATF. And the response I got back was, she's not interested in working on those issues. And so she's been in Congress, 2 decades.
Yep.
She's done nothing to help Tennesseans or citizens of the country on ATF issues. Other legislators have stepped in and tried to get some stuff done. She's been completely missing in action. And I agree. I mean, she ran for her Senate seat to get reelected as an incumbent, saying how important it was to elect her to go help Trump after she did what she did on January the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And then now all of a sudden, really not quite a year into her second term as a senator, the hints are being dropped. Now, she hasn't said, I'm running for governor.
Not yet.
It's all coming from her team, people like
Ward
her handler, Ward Baker,
Yep.
who I think are basically just trying to clear the field so that she can be anointed as the next governor. I'm really happy that at least John Rose and some others are going to make it a primary battle. And I'm not going to be surprised if, particularly since she hasn't announced at this point, if she goes, wait a minute, if I've got to raise, $20, $25, $30 million to run for governor, and I have to give up potentially my Senate seat, do I want to take that risk, or do I just want to, continue to be for the next 5 years the senior senator from the state of Tennessee?
Yeah, there are no Bob Doles in the U.S. Senate anymore, for sure.
So, and let's assume she becomes governor. Where's her statements on the Second Amendment? Where's anything where she's defending these issues? And it's not there, and it won't be there. I mean, if there's anything to it at all, it's lip service of I'm a strong Second Amendment supporter. But where's the proof? I mean, she's been in public office for almost 3 decades.
Absolutely. Well, John, appreciate you being on here. We want to have you back at some point, but we'll be back after the break, folks, in just a few moments. Stick around. Thank you, John, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. President Trump returning from the NATO summit in the Netherlands, where he celebrated the alliance agreeing to something he has long pushed for.
In a very historic milestone this week, the NATO allies committed to dramatically increase their defense spending to that 5% of GDP.
On the summit sidelines, Trump saying he and Ukrainian President Zelensky talked about supplying Ukraine with more anti-missile systems. Kilmar Abrego Garcia to remain at a Tennessee jail for at least a few more days. Attorneys in the federal smuggling case against him sparring over whether prosecutors have the ability to prevent Abrego Garcia's deportation if he's released to await trial. In Philadelphia today, a jury took just a half an hour of deliberations to convict a suburban man of killing a Temple University police officer who had chased him down as a suspect in the series of carjackings. Found guilty of first-degree murder, murder of a law enforcement officer, gun crimes, and of other offenses. This is ABC News. The vice mayor of Cudahy, California, is coming under fire for appearing to call for street gangs to intervene in immigration raids. In the social media post that's now deleted, Cynthia Gonzalez referenced two infamous gangs, 18th Street and Florence. Homeland Security calls the comments despicable. Axiom Space lifted off early today, carrying 4 astronauts to the International Space Station.
The launch had been delayed several times because of issues with the booster rocket and with the ISS itself. It was nearly scrubbed again today. As the clock ticked down, American Peggy Whitson, strapped into the Dragon spacecraft, said,
Axiom 4 crew, I'd like to thank the incredible teams that have made this moment possible.
2, 1, ignition, and lift.
Whitson is commander of the crew, comprising astronauts from India, Poland, and Hungary. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Dating app Bumble plans to lay off 240 employees, or about 30% of its workforce. Dave Packer, ABC News.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code EARN to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code EARN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code EARN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago. Servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work, or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
John, this always gets me in the mood to meet Roger at Gate City Monument every week.
Just one day, Roger in there someday. I don't know.
One day we're gonna have to meet Roger because
he should
every
be a
week
guest
we hear about Roger every week from Gate City Monument. So that's whoever's reading that's just really like, wow. It doesn't make me think about the morose part about you have to be dead to need this service.
Well, no, you could actually a Veterans Memorial, something like that. They could create. Yeah, I guess they're honoring dead. Never mind.
Exactly, but now my point is that it's
Sorry.
I want to meet this guy. Actually, maybe I don't want to meet this guy so quickly.
Actually, I believe they do other things besides. I don't remember. I haven't been by there in a while, but I believe they do other things. But I'd like to just for a minute, real quickly, guys, because our guest didn't get a chance to tell people his website address, so I just want to let folks know TennesseeFirearms.com. That's TennesseeFirearms.com. So in case anybody wants to look him up and go check him out there at his site, you're welcome to do so. It's also in the description, but some people are just listening and they might like to know.
Right. Maybe you want to support the Firearms Association, their foundation that they have as well. That'd be appreciated, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So while he's evil, and I often describe him as a crypt keeper based on his hideous visage, I don't wish him ill will. Chucky Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, has been taken to the hospital after an incident at his gymnasium. No update on that. So no update on that.
He goes to the gym.
Yeah, I had no idea. Well, it's a health episode at the gym, so I don't know if he
probably
had
at the Senate gym where they who knows.
It could also be it's a hot weather. Maybe he didn't have enough to drink. He was dehydrated. But anyway, so the 74-year-old was sent to the hospital. So as an update on Chuck Schumer, I don't wish him ill will. But I definitely don't like the guy politically. But anyway, just thought we'd let people know about that.
With his posture and nasally speech, I'd have never seen him as going to the gym.
No. Maybe he goes in there and does has those little bitty colored weights, little pink weights or 2 pounds, and he just does this for a few minutes.
Maybe he's just there to see the other men.
Okay,
to conduct business is what John.
We're not going down that road.
To conduct business is what he was talking about.
I say what I say. I can't help myself.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General Pam Bondi and the DOJ are now suing all federal judges in the state of Maryland over deportation order. Legal experts say it's an unusual lawsuit, marks an escalation in the attack on the judiciary. Isn't it funny when Trump strikes back at out of control, rogue, legislating from the bench judges that he's attacking the judiciary, yet the judiciary attacks him unconstitutionally over and over and over again, issuing stays and banning him from doing things that are within his constitutional authority. It's just but you know why we're hearing this? Because it's the media. It's the legacy media that lies. They're just terrible.
The left loves to prop these judges up as if they're somehow above the president of the United States. You're not. You're fairly well beneath him. I'm sorry. You don't have the authority to go around dictating how he conducts his business on a daily basis. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's what I was just getting ready to ask. I mean, do they really actually have any authority over Trump? I mean, they might be able to adjudicate whether he's doing something legal or illegal and make a determination for impeachment purposes.
Well, the Supreme Court's a co-equal branch, but not some just district judge. I'm sorry. You're not equal to the president or the executive branch in any way.
But even the Supreme Court, they just interpret, right? They don't.
Sure.
They can't boss the president around. They can't tell him what he can and can't do. But again, if they want to use the information Supreme Court provides for impeachment purposes, then that could be against them. But
who was the president? Maybe it's Andrew Jackson. I know we don't like him here, but he had a Supreme Court ruling against him, and he said, the Supreme Court Chief Justice has his ruling, but he doesn't have an army to enforce it, and they kind of just left it at that. Didn't even enforce the ruling. I think it was Andrew Jackson. Anyway,
I don't recall it. But yeah, it sounds
sounds like Andrew.
Pretty much, they were on the same subject matter back then, and pretty much it come to the same conclusion, right? That yeah, they can say what they want to, but they have no authority.
I mean, they have no authority to enforce. I mean, they have no enforcement mechanism. I mean, but they have authority generally by the executive branch or even the legislative branch abiding whatever the ruling is. I mean, that's kind of what they should do. I mean, but there's a lot of times whenever they're way off. I mean, we as the lay folks know that they're way off, but it's so political. The Supreme Court is now. I mean, it's probably always been that way, but they make rulings based on the political ideology, not the Constitution in many cases, not all cases.
It's like, listen to our guest, and what he's basically explaining is he's talking about all these laws and stuff in the state of Tennessee. I mean, I think that's pretty much putting it in a nutshell. They convolute it. They muddy the waters legally. To leave people in a state of helplessness,
so many people
where they have a constitutional right and should have the ability to exercise it.
Yeah, so many people won't do any research at all. So whenever their legislator comes back from Nashville, and they'll say, "Well, we got constitutional carry now. I did it for you," and they'll pat themselves on the back. When in reality, as our guest just said, it's anything but true constitutional carry. You're just lying to the people.
Yeah.
Well, that's like much government. They're just lying to the people. They're telling us it's one thing, it's quite another. So, guys, anybody have any plans to go to New Jack City, America's hub of Islam? No, not Patterson, New Jersey. The big rotten apple. Did you see what happened last night in the primary?
Yeah, absolutely. And you
Well,
got to think you had, I mean, two despicable individuals. Him and Cuomo were the
Yeah.
top two folks. I mean, like,
Yeah.
how is this the only two people you have in this entire city of 8+ million people of legal residents, plus the illegals that are there too?
Certainly, the people can go to an independent candidate, right? I mean, there's got to be another choice.
Well, there will be an independent candidate. Eric Adams, the current mayor, is independent. So guys, I'm not distraught because I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what.
There's gonna be a lot of
No,
votes split.
if this is handled well, come November, the founder of the Guardian Angels could be the next mayor of New York City.
Very
because
possible, with ranked
Eric
choice.
Adams will take a quarter of the vote. Then you'll see Mondami take at least a quarter of the vote. You'll see about 20% of the vote go to Cuomo. That will take over 60% of the vote. And that means that Curtis Sliwa could get 35 or 40% and become the next mayor of New York City.
That'd be so great.
that'd be great.
So great.
I would go for that.
And they were key. They were key back in the day at helping clean up New York.
Oh my goodness, yes. People have forgotten about the Guardian
Right.
Angels. I mean, I remember them growing up. You know, back in 1970s, New York was a war zone, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
police were under siege, and they didn't really help people. And they
No.
were outgunned, they were outmanned, and the Guardian Angels stepped up in neighborhoods and patrolled
Yeah.
neighborhoods and protected people. They were the original guardians of the city.
Yeah,
man.
they stopped
and
so
you know-
many rapes and thefts on subways and stuff like that
Mhm.
because they were very visible and people would run up to them and
They-
they'd
They
stop
were
and
a
protect them.
deterrent. A deterrent.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Go ahead,
Yeah.
John. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just sitting there thinking it's kind of irony to me because as much good work as the Guardian Angels did, there was a lot of crap in New York. It was really a cesspool for a long time,
Mhm.
and it was Rudy Giuliani had stepped up and cleaned up New York City. Did a
That
really
was in the
fine job.
90s. Yeah.
Yeah, and he never gets any credit for that. He just got crapped on. That's all he ever got. You know, it's guys who step up and do the job and get the job done and do a good job at it, like Trump, Giuliani.
Right.
These guys are the guys they dump all over. Why? Is that just liberal left thinking? I mean, you know, hey, we don't like it when people do a good job and clean things up. We'd rather live in slime and disgusting environments. And
If they put a D next to their name instead of an R, they would love them.
Yeah,
They
no
would
doubt
love
about that. No, but you know, the Guardian Angels Safety Patrol was founded at the height of chaos in New Jack City. I mean, it was February 1979. The city was out of control. And since then, the Guardian Angels have expanded to 130 cities in 14 countries around the world.
Wow.
Can you imagine
Wow.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
they were originally
Yeah.
they were originally created to combat widespread crime, as you said, in the New York subway system. And they trained their members to make citizens arrest, which always reminds me of Barney Fife. Citizens arrest, citizens arrest.
I think these
Oh,
were
yeah.
guys.
Nip it in the bud.
These were guys that came back from places like Vietnam and served
Oh,
in the
sure.
military and stuff like that. When they come back, they realize what their cities turned into because it wasn't like that when they left.
Well, it was also young folks who gravitated to them to well behaved. But I mean, look, Lee was 71, so he's healthy and young. I would love to see Curtis Lee become the mayor of New York City. That would be such a repudiation of the Democrats. I mean, as Todd said, the best they can come up with is a sex pervert. And a man who got tens of thousands of New Yorkers and their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles murdered, killed in the COVID scam by sending these COVID positive patients into nursing homes and killing them in droves. You know, this guy can never be forgiven, not to mention all the underhanded, dirty stuff that's yet to be prosecuted for what happened on his time as a governor. So he's one, and this other guy who is a lunatic, radical Islamic fanatic who wants to socialize the city. It's just this is the best I can come up with. I mean, that was over 70% of the vote that the Democrat candidates got without even talking about the other candidates. That's just crazy. And you know, the silly thing is that the day before the election, there were polls saying that Cuomo was up by 14 points. This is crazy.
Right. You know, what happened to the 14-point lead? I mean, it just dissipated quickly. It was over.
It must never have been there in the
No.
20 days. But what's
Polls
forgotten
could
about
be swayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's forgot about this is that this guy got his attention when he assaulted police officers. They say he didn't, but he was pushing them, and that's an assault.
Yeah.
Pushing
Right.
police officers and security at a Tom Homan event and screaming like an idiot because New York City is full of criminal alien invaders and their sympathizers. And so these people are out there. Look at Cynthia Nixon, that wackadoodle from Sex and the City. You know,
Right.
she's a person of high moral character, not.
No.
She did she run for governor and lost?
Yeah,
but
something like that. Yeah, something stupid.
Yeah, but she's out supporting this wackadoodle. These people are not Americans. They're trying to turn us into Crapistan. They want this country to be Crapistan, and they fight to turn us into Crapistan. It's really sad.
Right.
Really sad to see it.
And where are the good people of New York? Because I mean, I know a lot of good people from New York City. Where
Florida.
are they? Why don't they stand at Florida? Right? Yeah.
They're in Florida. They left. They left,
Yeah.
man. They're not there anymore. They're Florida. They're in Pennsylvania. They left. Texas.
Right.
They're gone. No, that's the problem. And they're gone. And then it's very few people left behind. The ones left behind are outnumbered. I mean, not to get into this, this white replacement theory story, but look at the numbers. Look at the United Kingdom, the percentage of people who are white, European in that country in 1960. America was 90% white back then. Now, the number of white folks in this country has grown demonstrably from 160 million to about 230 million now. So it's grown quite a bit. But the number of everybody else has grown demonstrably, so the percentage has declined. But you look at cities like New York, where it was 93% white in 1960, and today it's barely over a quarter white. It's the city's changed. It's a different city, and the people who've come in don't accept the mores, values, and norms by and large, and that's how you get lunatics like this in office. Look at London. You have a crazy mayor. By the way, in case you're curious, the United Kingdom, 4 million Muslims, 66 million people live in the country. London, Luton, Sheffield, Manchester, Birmingham, Leicester. Shall I continue? All Muslim mayors, despite having just a fraction of the population. How does this happen? 3,000 mosques in a country that fought the Crusades to stop Islam.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be taken over by your leftist policy, and you're not gonna be favored. By the way, you let them into your country, let them take over, and it's not about the person's religion; it's about their agenda here, their political agenda, especially. You let them take over, and the next thing you know, they're not going to respect you. They're going to be like, you're the useful idiot, like the communists used to call them. You're the useful idiot. Now it's time to kill you. I mean, essentially, that's what the communists said. Once we take over and establish ourselves, we will have no more use for them. They'll be basically, either killed or sent to a gulag.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is the death of the West. It's intentional. It's absolutely intentional. And there's nowhere for people to go for freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the right to seek redress. There's no place to go when we fall. Right. I mean, the UK has fallen, Ireland's fallen, Germany has fallen, France has fallen, New Zealand, Australia, they've all fallen to this woke virus, and there's nowhere for people to go.
Right. And the people that I see on social media, the FAFO folks, or the 2A people that are like, oh, they come here and do this. It's like, if they come to your community, they're pretty positive that they can pretty much do what they want to do. And you're not going to be able to defend yourself. The best way to defend yourself in the beginning is at the ballot box, without a doubt, and stay politically active. And don't let these, rhinos or these people that'll lie to you, who will sell you out as soon as they go to Washington or your state capital, don't put them in office. And if they do sell you out, don't reelect them, for crying out loud, especially if they're backed by big money interest that you have no idea about.
Yeah, but people do back them. They do vote for them. It's insane. We see it everywhere.
A good conservative, because I saw a flyer or a mailer that said that they're a good Christian conservative. It's like, yeah, don't you think somebody could just lie about that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, quite often people do. They want to they want to take down people's guard with for those who believe God bless, or hey, God sent me, or whatever. They always interject God into their conversation somewhere, so they can get people to drop their guard on them.
Yeah, I assisted a conservative running for office one time, running for the House of Representatives, and he was running against somebody who sent out all these nice mailers and commercials about being a good Christian and all this stuff. And then once everybody was locked into the race, all the negative stuff, all the attack ads from that individual started coming out. But it's like they secured so many votes already by claiming the Christian high ground that people weren't about to turn against them. And it's like, just because they claim the Christian high ground doesn't mean that they're necessarily moral, just, and actually truly Christian, if you will. Especially if they're going to attack somebody at the drop of a hat, just because their poll numbers start to go up a little bit. It's dangerous.
Well, speaking of rhinos and people, what do you guys make of this past week when several prominent so-called conservatives, including people elected to office, came out and so demonically opposed to President Trump, accused him of being a warmonger, and started throwing the term neocon around and talking about how Trump was leading us into World War III. Boy, World War III was very short, wasn't it? It never lasted a second. But all this panic over World War III, and I was trying to calm my audience down, saying this isn't going to happen. But I mean, there's a whole bunch of people whose names are huge in the social media realm, really big out there, who came out and criticized President Trump. And the thing is, it's okay to criticize President Trump, but there was no merit to their criticism.
Right?
They just criticized him because they all seem to hate Jews, every one of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny but the people that did celebrate, what Trump did that have no idea about anything defense or whatever, all of a sudden come out as experts. It's like, you're not an expert on defense. You want to say good job, thumbs up on the hitting Iran and the nuclear sites. That's fine, but don't pretend to be an expert, for crying out loud. And a lot of these are local politicos and state politicos that pretend like they know what the heck they're talking about, and they just sound so stupid. But people are like, yeah, good job, because you post a picture of Trump and maybe a mullah who's dead. I don't know.
Well, they generally scare people to death, John. I mean, they really do scare people. I mean, I had dozens of my viewers contact me through multiple means. Chris, are we going to go war? What's going to happen? I mean, they're really genuinely scared because of this nonsense.
Yeah. So basically what's going on here is, one, they want a grandstand. Because everybody wants to be so self-important, because that's the nature of our society anymore, is look at me, I know everything. Look at me, I am everything. I am so important here. You guys got to do what I tell you. And they do this in Congress all the time. It's always attention seeking. It's disgusting. And the other thing is they got to keep you in an emotional state of mind, because people in a heightened emotional state of mind are controllable people. We can keep manipulating them back into our way of thinking, as long as you keep thinking emotionally. You got to have some critical thinking. You got to have some rational thought. And our members of we've had fear-based leadership forever and a day, and it's gotten sickening and it's tiresome. We've got to get away from the fear-based leadership. We as a society got to start using critical thinking and put this stuff aside and start calling them out for it, so they'll stop doing it.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And we should get away from fear-based leadership. And on another note, the world will end tomorrow. Vote for me. No, but seriously, the thing that killed me about all this was, so when it happened, when it happened, and the president said that it was totally obliterated, and people said, well, is that true? I said, okay, hang on. I have a problem, because battle damage assessment is almost always incorrect from initial estimates.
Right.
I said that when the president said we totally destroyed it. I said, we don't know yet. All we can do is look at this with imagery and thermals and listen to communication. It's going to take a time to paint a picture of just how much damage was done. Then you have these people leaking classified information. It looks like it wasn't someone in the intelligence community, but actually who else but a member of Congress.
Of course.
So now the administration is going to limit what they share with Congress, because you can't trust them. They're treason.
No, you can't.
Yeah, so they leaked this low-level DIA assessment, which was given low credibility. Low confidence was the evaluation of this report by the people responsible for evaluating reports come out of the DIA, and they said it's low credibility. So this one comes out and says that they didn't do anything. It's a few weeks. Okay, first off, you can't even see the site. It's underground. How in the world is anybody telling us that there was no damage, that it's only delayed them for a few weeks? How can you possibly assess when they've lost 14 of their top nuclear scientists who were assassinated? They're gone. That's the ones we know about. There's probably a few taken out we don't know about. So the top figures are gone. The facility was hit with these bombs that drive down a couple hundred feet below the ground before they explode. Imagine a concussion underground from something that big that weighs 30,000 pounds. And there were 6 of them dropped there. If you look at the pre-image from Max Air, the commercial satellite place, you can see mountains, you can see terrain, ridge lines. And then the photo after the bombing, you see flat, because the entire mountain part of it just collapsed inwards on itself. And you're going to tell me that that's only delayed them a few days. They are probably never going to be able to get into that tunnel and dig that out. This is ludicrous. So I said that I don't buy the initial assessment, because it tends to be incorrect in the fog of battle, and it takes more information. So, for instance, people might go, well, how are they going to determine this? Well, imagery, thermals. In addition, when the Iranians go to the site and assess it, and they're going to be communicating, we'll be able to intercept what they're saying, and then we'll get a feel for it. Plus, we evaluate a lot of indicators. It takes time. But based on the imagery I saw and having experience as an imagery analyst, I would say that the president's probably right. That site was obliterated. Whether it obliterated the nuclear program, I can't state, because I don't know where all this stuff was. But I can tell you that site. And here's the other thing: all these idiots writing out, but they took without any evidence whatsoever. Did they have any imagery? Did they have any moving target indicators from J stars or anything like that? No. Their argument is, well, they took all the physical material out. Well, how do you know that? Well, you don't know that. You do realize that these nuclear sites in Iran are watched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the past 40 years. We have analysts that sit around and watch and listen to everything that's going on in every one of these sites. They don't fart without somebody knowing about it. And so that's the reason why Trump had to strike when he did, because no one's even addressed that. I've not heard any analyst. I of course, said this. It was happened. I said, the reason Trump struck, he said he's going to do something next 2 weeks. And when he did that, the Iranians took him seriously, and they moved a bunch of trucks. Look at the video. We have the images of dozens of trucks lined up, and guess what? They ain't no more trucks. They've been blown up.
Yeah, they gone.
But seriously, I mean, guys, it's, and so this whole thing in the media trying to downplay this. So tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., President Trump said that Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff are going to come out, and they're probably going to disclose what was previously classified information just to embarrass. Did you see how Trump went off at the NATO summit? I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I turned the TV on. It was on. It was comical watching him and his fanboy Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of the UN of NATO, talking about this, and he was just going off on CNN and all these media outlets, the New York Times. Woo, it was entertaining.
Right, absolutely. And I don't understand the members of Congress that come out in support of Iran. And for crying out loud, this is a nation who wants to wipe you off the map just because you're an American, regardless if you agree with them or not. They're not going to spare your life. I don't understand that.
Yeah, look, we just have to look around other places and see the condition of these other countries, how they've been destroyed by this kind of nonsense. I mean, look at France. You got people at music festivals leaving rubbish everywhere, breaking everything. Completely different than what France was 30, 40 years ago. It's total chaos. Same in the UK. It's just insanity. Why do they want that garbage that's from the developing world deposited in our doorsteps? They're just such evil people.
Yeah, I remember back in, I think, 97, 98, I was at a Metallica concert in Germany. And, rock concerts, usually just trash on the ground or whatever. I witnessed people throwing trash on the ground, and like the people, the concert girls are like making them pick it up. Like, throw that in the trash bin, the rubbish bin or whatever, like, not here. Don't do that. That's kind of wild at a rock concert. And that was 30 years ago.
With you 100%. Yeah. Some of the comments coming in social media and chat, someone saying, where's the proof the sites are destroyed? Well, I guess you're not very good at hearing, Prometheus. I just explained to you imagery analysis. Okay, what are your bona fides, Prometheus? Are you a 36-year intelligence officer that worked at the national intelligence level, the tactical level? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I confused you with myself, Prometheus. Okay, sorry about that. Just looking at the chat over there. I get a little confused by some of these comments people put in there. So.
And you did caveat saying that, there's still assessments going on. But
right. And initially I said I didn't buy the argument that it was totally obliterated because we don't have there hasn't been time to analyze. It's just been a couple hours. We don't know yet. Then I said the papers are wrong because what do they know? They can't see. And then I said, but looking at what I saw, having analyzed imagery in the past, that's commercial image. That's not even the stuff that the government has.
Right.
That commercial stuff isn't any near as good as what I could see if I was behind closed doors. Looking at what's commercially available, it's obvious that massive damage was done. And as I said, you guys heard me, I don't know what that means because there's other sites, but it seems likely that they've destroyed their nuclear capability based on what little information we have. So, I mean, Prometheus, you can go to a clinic and they have things to irrigate your ears to get that wax out of there. It really is helpful. I discovered that. I thought I had tinnitus. It was actually just earwax. Just go get it syringed out. It comes out really well. Anyway, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, that's all right, man. I'm pretty sure they knew what they were doing when they dropped them bombs. I think they knew what their targets were, and they hit their targets, and they knew what they were using. I think that job was adequately done. But you're right; it'll take time to find an exact evaluation on it. One of the things that people have brought up here since this has happened is the possibility of sleeper cells that have come across the border these last 4 years. And they've been here long before that. We know that. And the awakening of sleeper cells and having terrorist attacks here in the United States again as a backlash on what has occurred here recently. Have you given any thought to this?
Yes, I have. And we've talked about this previously. I talked about extensively when the Biden regime was in office. We caught dozens of Iranians crossing the border illegally from Mexico. What are Iranians doing in Mexico other than to invade our country? They have no business. Yeah. Iranians can only come to this country by air or by boat, not by the Rio Grande or the Sierra Vista border. It doesn't work that way. So I've worried about it for years, Iranians and others. And the government didn't take it seriously. They completely ignored it.
Acted like they wanted it, didn't they?
I want to go back really quick to the assessment. It says you have zero proof. It's like there's a lot of evidence that's out there that you've assessed that's publicly available. This is where your assessment's coming from. So that's the proof. Prometheus says you have no proof. And you made an assessment on publicly available information.
Right. And that's my analysis, which tends to be 100% correct most of the
nearly
time.
4-decade experience doing it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I'm sorry. I only wrote intelligence products for the President of the United States. It's not like I've ever actually done anything here. Yeah, but it's nice to see the trolls come in. He's telling me not to argue.
I didn't write them, but I hand delivered them occasionally.
Exactly. He's telling. Yeah, you probably did. But he's telling me, not to argue with a patriot. I'm sorry. What exactly are Todd and I? Good Lord, in multiple combat tours and defense this nation. Sit down, buddy. Sit down. Thank you for playing along. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and we're not saying that you're not a patriot, but in this instance, the colonel's right. Sorry.
Yeah, that's something I hear quite frequently in this instance.
Here we go.
You just opened up that door, didn't you, Todd?
Hey, look, if you're going to lay it out there for me, I'm just going to take advantage of it. Yeah. Hey, did you guys also see that today Iran has banned the International Atomic Energy Agency from
of course.
The agency that is more pro, Iranian than anybody, because they actually called them out and, what they were doing. They're the ones who reported that they had enriched uranium over 60%. And I guess they didn't like being dimed by their own friends there at the UN. So a UN agency has been banned by the Iranians. How much more rogue do they have to be? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't ban the UN.
That might be a clear indicator they got something else going on somewhere.
Well, it's a clear indication that they're definitely look. Iran's regime is in trouble. I mean, there's a chance. I mean, I'm not predicting this, but there's a chance that people might finally rise up and overthrow these mullahs. They are much weaker than they realize. I think they might actually be realizing that's why they came to the table. So for years, the trump card, no pun intended, for the Iranian mullahs was their nuclear program. The nuclear program they're going to develop. Because remember, they fought 9 years with the Iraqis, and they couldn't defeat the Iraqis. We defeated the Iraqis in like 36 minutes. They couldn't defeat the Iraqis. They couldn't defeat them. Well, I mean, it was a little bit longer than that, but I mean, I did get a campaign medal for it. But of course, there were bullets flying, but I guess that came with the turf. But no, they couldn't defeat them. And how they fought against them? They sent teenagers across minefields to set the mines off. To clear the minefields. It's insane.
Yeah, they were fighting trench warfare, and you had jet aircraft and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, I did see, the Israelis just tried to destroy 2 of their F-14 Tomcats at Tehran, but the assessment on those was that they weren't actually operational. They just sat at the airfields. Well, they aren't sitting at the airfield anymore. So Tom Cruise probably, crying in his beer, the Tomcats are destroyed.
You're talking about a country that was using Bell helicopters to fly their high dignitaries around who couldn't get replacement parts. And last year, one of them crashed. Yeah. I mean, these guys they're not all there. They're just financially, economically, and technologically, they're not all there. They're not a formidable enemy. It's not going to happen for them.
Yeah. And their ideology is and I don't even want to put the Stone Age down, but it's the Stone Age, the ideology,
So, guys, which video footage for you is the footage of the week? I mean, there's lots of stuff. We've got the B-2 Spirits flying. I know, Todd, go ahead. Which one is it?
Yeah, the F-bomb by Trump. So.
Oh, no, that was good. No, but I was going back before the F-bomb. No, that wasn't it for me. The one for me was the Iranian state television. The infidel, the Israelis are coming here. Oh, that was classic. And what's so funny about it is they were told to get out, and they just stubborn. I guess they didn't think it was going to happen.
It's like the Iraqi spokesperson, right? Oh, nothing is happening. No, it's peaceful. No, yeah. They can't take it.
Well, look. I mean, look. We got the Iranian state television. We got CNN in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm standing here in front of a mostly peaceful protest as gunshots go behind him, and the car dealership is on fire with 40 cars burning. A mostly peaceful protest. Yeah, because
the words mostly peaceful really got to get to you, right?
Yeah, in the 5-foot square area he was standing, it's peaceful, probably, right?
Look, I mean, I usually go to protests where we're using cars to, toast our marshmallows and s'mores. Come on. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Anyway, so what an eventful week, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and get into it now. You're listening to the Common Sense Conservatives here on WSM every Wednesday evening. Thanks for tuning in. And for those of you listening to us on the radio, we appreciate that. The terrestrial link, those watching it on the internet or interwebs, as Todd likes to call it. Thanks for watching on all our multi-streaming. We really appreciate joining us this evening. We're coming at you every Wednesday night on WSMN. So, guys, it's been an eventful week. Trump told people to get out of Tehran, and millions listened. They fled the city. The traffic jams were monumental. And then after they fled the city, Trump said, I will make my decision in 2 weeks. After he came back from the G7 conference or summit in Western Canada, came back early, a day early from that, and then had his briefing, approved the battle plan, and then said, you got 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, I'll make my decision. And 2 days later, 2 days later. But I think, I think one of the best parts of this was, from my perspective, is that I'm sick and tired of the treasonous behavior of officials in bureaucracy and in the White House, in past White Houses, including Trump's past White House, who betray this nation and disclose classified information for their own purposes, their own political purposes, and get our soldiers and sailors, Marines, and airmen in harm's way, and citizens. This was flawless. Operational security was Loctite. No one knew out of a tight circle who executed this. And then the killer for me was that while I was broadcasting the other day, and this was going down, people were like, B-2 bombers are flying to Guam. They're going to Guam. That must be for Iran. My first question was like, B-2 bombers are stealth bombers. How do you know they're flying to Guam unless they want you to know that?
Right.
Which nobody can answer.
Right.
Nobody can answer the question.
Yeah, they wanted you to know that they were flying that way for some reason. And maybe that'll be disclosed maybe tomorrow in the briefing, or we'll see.
Well, no, they did. They said it was the deception of, it was
okay,
intentional.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, but at the time, I kind of alluded to that without giving it away. But I also said that perhaps it's a message to China. We're gonna go into Iran. Don't get lippity or uppity with Taiwan by putting stealth bombers within range of Taiwan and mainland China and Guam. So that's what and that could still be part of the purpose of why they went there. But while they were flying that way, he got a 15-hour mission from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, the only base where you have these aircraft, flying all the way across, refueling multiple times, being joined by a 4th and 5th generation strike package in front of them, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aircraft, knocking out radars, strike package going in. And wow, what an absolutely incredible Operation Midnight Hammer was absolutely one of the most flawless and best executed missions we've ever heard of in living memory. What do you think about that, Todd?
No, I would agree with you. And of course, the fact that you didn't hear any chatter until it was all over, and it was perfect. And Iran basically was like, we need to come to the table. And I like how he's told Israel, I guess they had a little exchange after the ceasefire was announced. And basically he got on the phone with Israel, and they turned some planes around too, though. I mean, the fact that the ceasefire after that is holding means Trump holds the Trump cards at this point, without a doubt.
Well, I do have, and look, again, we will hold the administration accountable. I mean, I appreciate Trump's frustration with both parties, but I'm a little puzzled by his reaction about, I told them to stop firing, cease fire in 6 hours for Iran and 12 hours for Israel. And then they started firing. Israel sent the biggest package. Well, dude, it's like Armistice Day. It didn't happen immediately. It was later on the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month. So people killed each other right up until that time. The Israelis are going to send every strike package they can to destroy every single Iranian aircraft and helicopter on the ground and every single senior leader they can get their hands on before they stop. And they would be foolish not to do that. So the criticism of Israel from the president, I thought was misplaced. What did he expect was happening? If he said ceasefire immediately, okay. But I mean, he gave them 12 hours. That's more than enough time to fly to Iran and do a lot of damage. And he gave the Iranians 6 hours. That's lots of time to fire missiles. So there you go.
Sure. Yeah,
it's Netanyahu was quite clear about that. He had set objectives for set reasons, and he was going to fulfill those. And so you're absolutely right what you're saying, Chris. They wanted to fulfill those, finish the job, get the job done, and now when they come to the table, they've completed their task and they're ready to talk.
But you can't win if Trump does nothing and Iran puts a suitcase bomb and it blows up Miami. Then Trump destroyed the world and took us into World War III. If Trump stops Iran's nuclear capability, he's a warmonger and led us in World War III. But I'm still curious. Thomas Massey, Alex Jones, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens. Where's World War III at? Did we miss it? Is it still coming? We'll pay attention. Right. But they all said we were going to be in World War III. And a lot of these people have backtracked now, and they're all like, rah, rah, Trump. But no, go back and watch their
Don't you think that was a calculated risk before he made the decision? I mean, wouldn't they be sitting in the situation room going, okay, what are the odds? What's going on in China? What's going on in Russia? Well, Russia's tied up right now. So he knew what he was doing. He didn't just willy-nilly do this thing.
Well, of course. But here's my point. If it had failed, I still would have backed Trump. It was necessary. But these people bailed on Trump, and now they're coming back and like, oh no, you weren't here all along. You dumped all over Trump. You accused him of leading us into war. And here's the thing that's so comical for me. Even some of these conservative commentators don't know civics. They don't know what the Constitution says. They don't know what a commander-in-chief is. They don't know what the War Powers Act of 1979 says. And they're running around these idiots like Crockett and AOC. This is a violation of the War Powers Act. No, it's not. No,
Not
it's
at
not.
all.
Trump has to inform Congress within 48 hours, and he did. He did.
Yeah,
so you guys-
and of course, he could send forces in for 60 days without even declaring a war or anything like that.
Right. And what's most annoying about all this is, like so many other things, this is not exactly novel of President Trump. He did it to Soleimani. They didn't lose their minds. Obama murdered American citizens extrajudicially.
Yes, he did.
He fired drones at American citizens in Yemen and killing a known terrorist and his son, who wasn't a known
Teenage
terrorist.
son, yeah.
Yep. And then he fired thousands of rockets and missiles into countries. We saw that, of course, also Biden did this, probably 5 different countries, 3 of which he couldn't even identify on a map if you asked him, and so this has been going on forever. Trump took the action that he felt was necessary to protect the American people and, quite frankly, protect the world. And if it had failed, I still would have endorsed it. I still would have supported it.
So the Iranians tried to take, say, we defaulted on some of our treaty agreements with them on nuclear power. So they decided
we have no treaty agreement with Iran.
So,
not a single
well,
one.
they're
They're
claiming we did.
no
So what
diplomatic relations at all.
what they're doing is they try to justify their actions of enriching uranium for purposes of weaponization, and so Trump basically shut that down pretty much permanently. We should hope permanently. This is one of those circumstances where we won't be going 20 years in the future going, wow, we really should have taken action then. We really should have shut that down then. It's done. He did us a service. And Netanyahu was saying it to begin with. He was saying when he was taking action, he wasn't doing a service just for Israel. Yes, it's self-serving for Israel, but truthfully, he was doing a service for the world because these are dangerous people. Iran has funded Al-Qaeda. Iran has funded many of these terrorist organizations that have attacked the United States of America. For the
Lockerbie bomber, many terrorists.
The Marine Corps barracks bombing. Marine Corps barracks bombing was funded by the Iranian state. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, all terror organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No quarter.
It was time to shut them down. And as you said, Chris, if we can get a flip of the regime and actually get democracy back in Iran, that'd be a win-win, man. That'd be a great deal.
I don't care about democracy in Iran. I don't care if it's glass.
But you're getting rid of this regime. That's what I'm getting at. We get rid of this
they're not.
regime.
They're not gotten rid of. They're still there. But
I'm saying if.
He's saying you're for that. You're for the regime.
Yes,
for sure.
I'm for that. If it turns out to be that the people of Iran from my understanding, people of Iran are thanking us for this.
Yeah, but I mean, there are people who thanked us in Baghdad too. But then the State Department and DoD couldn't work together and screwed it up, and then they didn't take the playbook that was built before the war, when in fact that was 3 feet high of all the printed out documents of how we're supposed to restore power, get water on, provide security, demilitarize military, and they all just sat around their thumbs up their rectum, and look what happened in Iraq because of that.
Right. So the point is that if people in Iran pretty much stand up against their government now, they'd overturn their government. If we get a different form of government, I mean, it'd be huge for the world. It might put an end to a lot of this nonsense.
Look, you got to be careful. We're getting a different form of government in New York, courtesy of the Democrats. I don't want that.
Not at all.
It can't get any worse than Iran.
That's
definitely get worse than New York City.
That's America's largest city, and that's where the world goes to do commerce right there. I mean, imagine what that's going to have if this guy gets elected to be mayor there. I mean, it's going to have a dramatic effect on a lot of things that we do in our society around the world.
I think what liberals got to come to realize, and I hope they're listening right now, because it was the Biden administration. It was the liberals that said, keep the borders open. It was the liberals that said, let them in. And now we're talking about possible backlash of terrorist organizations here in the United States of America attacking our people with terrorist activities. Usually terrorists attack large-scaled cities, Chicago, L.A., New York City, places where liberals live. No, you're not so commonly going to find conservatives live in them areas. So they basically shot themselves in the foot once again. If it happens, and I'm not wishing for it to happen by any means, don't get me wrong. I definitely don't want it to happen. But if it were to happen, liberals did it to liberals.
Well, yeah, they're the ones that have led the de-Westernization of the world, and all this radical ideology is just a bunch of nonsense. Attacking America for the Bretton Woods system. The Bretton Woods system has allowed unprecedented, unparalleled prosperity, enriching the lives of billions of people.
Right,
Since the
grew
end
the
of
middle class in a big way.
and not just in America, but around the world,
Right.
lifting people out of poverty. 1 billion Chinese have been lifted out. Well, 600 million Chinese have been lifted out of poverty because they've adopted some free market reforms. Imagine if they were actually a capital-based market, they'd probably none of them be living in poverty with the ingenuity the Chinese have been able to steal from everybody. I mean, adopt.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah, no, it's but I mean, exciting stuff. What a crazy week. What a strike. Operation Midnight Hammer. It made for a busy week for me, man. I had like 6 streams in one day because of all this stuff. It was just crazy stuff. But I mean, here we are now. What's going to happen going forward? Well, Iran will be a lot quieter. I think they'll spark a little bit and bark a little bit. But what about the attack on their airbase in Qatar? So, guys, I'm going to do a replay of this. Hello, Qatar Ministry of Defense. This is the Supreme Command of the Ayatollah. We will be firing 14 missiles at the American base in your country. Not to worry, it's at the base, and they'll be fired at 6:35 this evening. You can expect them over your airspace at about 6:57. In case you don't know, you might want to shoot them down. I'm just saying, but we have to do something to appease our people. They're very angry with us here in Tehran. They want to kill us all, and we've got to do something to show them we're still in charge. And then they actually notified the American Department of Defense too that they were firing missiles at our base. Did you guys know that?
Which was smart, which was very smart to do, so we could shoot them down. Because if they had hit and killed people, it's a different situation all of a sudden.
So I mean, let me
no longer in charge at that point.
Let me just roll the clock back to July or June of 1941, after they finished the Balkans, overrunning Greece and Crete, the Nazis. Here we are. Hello. Yes. This is the red line to the Kremlin. Yes. Can I talk to? Can I? Oh no. Can we talk to Joseph Stalin? Okay. Just a moment. Can you hold for the Fuhrer? Hello, Joseph. Joseph. We are going to attack at 5 o'clock this morning. Operation Barbarossa is underway. We are coming to Moscow. We've got lots of artillery, and we'll be shooting at you starting at 5 o'clock. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Please do not turn on the winter, though. Do not turn winter on.
Can you keep the winter off, please?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine that? It's like, here, even better. Even better. You ready for this? Hello, Hickam Army Airfield. This is Hirohito Takahito. I'm in a 0 approaching your airfield. We are going to bomb you into the Stone Age. Are you ready for this? Wait, come on, seriously?
Right. The Arizona would be would have been scuttled. There maybe the Bikini Atoll test or something. It would have been sunk at Pearl Harbor if that was the case.
My goodness. I mean, hello, we're bombing you now. Did you also hear the Israelis? Somebody shared the recording of the Mossad agent calling up the Iranian general. Did you catch that?
No, tell me more.
Tell me more. The Mossad agents who speak Persian, Farsi, they were calling up the Iranian generals. Hello, General Salmin al-Akbar. Do you know who this is? Who's this? This is from the same country that just sent the following 3 peoples all the way to Hades. It wasn't Hades that he said on the phone call, but it's a phone call. The general's like, what? Who is this?
Also, your cell phone is going to blow up. Your cell phone will blow up.
Yeah, exactly.
Your pager is going to blow up.
Your pager will self-destruct in 15 seconds. Your mission, whether you choose to accept it or not, is death.
Yes, death. Sorry, Ethan. I love that.
I guess goodness. Prometheus left here. I couldn't keep up. I don't know.
No,
it's too bad we lost our troll because they really get the algorithms going.
Anyway, but seriously, guys, I mean, come on, it's just this whole thing. So the 12-day war, at least for now, that's what's going to be known as. We had the 6-day war, of course, in 1967, a brilliant preemptive strike by the Israelis.
Yes.
One of the most incredible conflicts in history. They just destroyed the entire Egyptian, Syrian, and Jordanian Air Force on the ground. And imagine how that had to be timed. Because if you take off from Israel, you're in Jordan in 30 seconds, bombing people within 5 minutes. Israel to Egypt is a little bit further, and then you got Syria. So you got to time it so that nobody gets it, so they all hit at the same time. Right. That was incredibly. Talk about synchronized swimming. That was brilliant back in '67. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I love the Mossad guys. I mean, doing some joint stuff with especially a lot of bilateral stuff. You get to work with those guys on a regular basis, and they're unique, and they're an interesting bunch of guys, I can tell you, and gals.
Well, I'll tell you, Hollywood sometimes really embellishes things and gets things wrong. But one movie that I thought was really well done was a Spielberg movie, and that was Munich.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was Eric Bana in it. I believe,
Eric Bana was in that.
Really good movie. Yes,
that was incredible. Which is a true story. I mean, there's a bit of Hollywood embellishment in there, but that's exactly what Mossad did. They hunted these people down and killed every one of them responsible for the killing of those athletes in Munich. Yep, incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
I had one. We were in Poland doing a thing, and we were talking, and like the next day, he's like, he knew my full name and everything. He knew exactly where I lived. He's just let me know that how good they are. I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. And I said, I bet I could figure out where you live too. He's like, you can't figure out my real name. I said, all right, good. Dude, that was pretty funny though.
It's strange how some movies which are really sedate still draw you in. I mean, look, Black Hawk Down was like crazy action, so that drew you in. That was a pretty good movie by Mark Boden's book. But two movies that come to mind that are these slow rolling movies that really drag you in and you just don't want to step away. Munich is one of them. And another was Zodiac. That was incredible.
Yeah. That was interesting too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I knew the whole story, but the movie was so well filmed and directed with Jake Gyllenhaal. And then what's his name there? The guy that's always in trouble, the Iron Man.
Iron Man, he played. Yeah, he was playing the drunk guy, whatever. And
what a great movie that was.
Yeah, absolutely. Now switch gears here. Who do you think the Zodiac was? I mean, there was like three key individuals that they were keying in on. One had been, I think, a Navy like cipher guy or crypto guy, I believe, right?
Right. Zodiac. One of the guy was that. Yeah. So they had lots of suspects in this, but in the end, I think it was the most obvious guy. That's the guy they went after. So, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, but and that's what a lot of the experts think too. Is the one you're talking about? Yeah, I can't think of it, but yeah, and of course, obviously, they can't try him, so they can't say 100% that it was the guy.
Yeah. So I mean, but the Zodiac cipher is pretty amazing. Someone, a couple actually cracked that thing, and figured it out.
It was a mom and pop. Yeah, they love puzzles, and they figured something out. Yeah.
Exactly. Pretty wild. Anyway. What a crazy situation here. And the guy claimed a lot more, Arthur Lee Allen. That's the guy.
Arthur Lee Allen. Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct.
Arthur Lee Allen. He's dead now, but that was a lot of people thought that he was the guy. I mean, I suspect he was. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on Zodiac. Especially in this day and age, you get Netflix and platforms like that where people love to do these specials but that movie was really incredible. I really thought that was an amazing movie.
Oh, absolutely. So next question, DB Cooper, who was he?
That one,
Army paratrooper.
I don't know who we know. We don't even know if he survived.
Right.
They found parts of this years later, but that was what a mess. That guy set a precedent. With the freaking skyjacking. That was not something we needed. That was definitely not something we needed.
Right.
But Arthur Lee Allen had all there's so many hallmarks of the Zodiac that this guy just fit perfectly. The boots, where he worked
Walker boots,
that's right. And he was a convicted sex offender. Yeah,
the glasses, the look, he looked almost like the sketch.
Yeah, exactly, from the Survivors. But what a twisted individual to do what he did. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but Zodiac. Silence of the Lambs is epic. That was a slow one too.
Yeah, I like that.
That the Silence of the Lambs is a bit creepy. Do you still hear them? Can you hear them, Clarice?
Hello,
Do you hear the silence of the lambs?
It's good to see you again.
Man, that's
great movie. Great.
I think every movie got more and more of
ridiculous. They got ridiculous.
Well, just so mind disturbing. I mean, things I wouldn't want to say on the radio right now that they illustrated in the movies was just.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. played the guy in Zodiac. It's a great movie. Jake Gyllenhaal and Robert Downey Jr. That was a really good movie. But I mean, it's amazing how sometimes Hollywood can just do a really great job movies, whereas opposed to watching Wakanda and Wonder Woman, it was pretty.
I mean, I don't understand the whole reboot after reboot after reboot. It's like, do a superhero movie, get it right the first time. You don't have to reboot it every 5 seconds.
Well, different directors, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody had their own vision, and they wanted to share their vision. And
like with the whole Superman with the Zack Snyder cut, or Dawn of Justice, or whatever that was. Next thing you know, they had to bring in Josh Whedon, and he just kind of botched that whole thing. And I guess the Snyder cut released on HBO a few years ago would have been a heck of a lot better. Would have been like 3 hours. It probably would have been competition for Oscars. It was that good.
Were you guys DC comic fans or?
I like comics, but I don't sit and read them. I do like the characters though.
Oh, I was never big into them. I had friends that were really big into them, and when they started doing Batman and stuff like that, they were so excited. They went and saw every movie, and there were good movies and stuff. But you know how I am about Hollywood. I go watch a movie and I done forgot about a week later.
Yeah, I'm gonna go see the new Superman when it comes out, just to get an idea of what it's about, and
There's a new Superman. Oh my goodness,
coming out. Yeah, and it's got the little Crypto, the dog, in there, and it's got a lot of the. It's one of the comic book lines, the storyline that they're going with. So I can't remember which one it is, but it's very bright, very hopeful and stuff like that from some of the clips I've seen. So I think it may be a good movie. I don't like the idea of the big fire breathing dragon-y looking thing, but whatever.
So Holden brings up nerds, and I'm sitting there thinking, does he mean Revenge of the Nerds? Because it seems like it was a prophetic movie of the 1980s.
No, I think he's referring to the fact that people are into comics.
I think so. But I thought I'd throw it up there. With
That's all right, Holden. Thank you.
Oh, I do have some really important news, which we need to announce to everybody. I don't know if you know this. So, guys, I don't know if you know this, but the Ukrainian American is selling OnlyFans website. Did you know that?
Who? What?
Say that again.
Yes, there's a Ukrainian American who is the owner of the secretive
OnlyFans
website.
He owns the platform. Okay, gotcha.
Oh.
Yeah, it was started in 2016 by a wealthy Brit, but now the current owner is a secretive Ukrainian American. Wants to sell it for $8 billion. There are 4 million creators on OnlyFans, and they have 300 million fans who pay for it. And in the 12 months to November 2023, which is the latest data available, that site brought in $1.3 billion in revenue, 50% of which went to OnlyFans. That's an operating margin that was higher than Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft. Wow.
That's basically just any weird porn fetish, whatever the heck you want. It's right
actually
there.
I think OnlyFans does have things where people do hiking, camping, and other non.
I guess I don't know. I mean,
I think it does, but it's well known for the pornographic material.
Right. That's the only way I even know, not because I'll look at it. I'm not a subscriber, but that's the only way I've come to know about it is through people talking about it, on social media about the
people talk about it on social media and stuff, and
right. And it's like it's right there in your face too. I mean, even on Instagram, TikTok. I mean, it's all right there anyway. It's sicko stuff.
It's kind of disturbing how focused people are. Since the 1980s, I think people got really focused on sex. Everything had to do with sex, kind of like that Madonna thing. Sex sells, and so now that's all people talk about.
People want to talk about protecting their kids, but then they throw them out there on social media and sex them up and stuff like that. And it's like, you're not protecting your kid. Respect our privacy. It's like you put your kid out there in some bikini, take weird provocative photos. Oh no, it's for her modeling career. No, you're basically child porn light.
Ramsey and
you're child porn light is what you are. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are right. I went to OnlyFans, and the first thing that shows up here, of course, you have to have an account to even go into it, is a comedian, Brittany Schmidt. Of course, it's not exactly appropriate comedy, but
it might be more adult-like material, but not necessarily
exactly
X-rated.
Yeah. So anyway, everything he seems to have is sexual innuendo, even the weightlifting videos.
Of course.
But that's our society anymore. It's kind of like, I don't know, like I said, 1980s it seemed to be this whole sex sells thing, and everybody got so wrapped up into it. It's turned into ridiculousness.
And everybody documents every damn thing that they do in their life. It's like, it's like pull the phone out, going grocery shopping, look at the carrots I bought. And it's so stupid, all the stuff that people put out there. I mean, nonsense. And people mindlessly watch it and follow it.
Carrots. I suppose you didn't like the green beans either.
Right. No, I'm just saying every little thing's documented. And of course, everybody's an expert, but nobody uses their supercomputer that they have in their pocket to do real research and look things up. It's like you can do that before you try to call people out or pretend like you're an expert. Do a little bit of research before you spout off on social media like you know something. That's my thought.
Well, that's a fair thought. Folks, we're almost about out the door here. Thanks for tuning in with this week. We appreciate it. Thanks to our guest from the Tennessee Firearms Association. We'll catch you next week right here on the Common Sense Conservatives. Cheers, guys.
Bye, everybody.